Hello and welcome to Kevin O'Hagan's Special Forces hand-to-hand training system. In the 30 years that I've been involved in martial arts training, I've been fortunate enough to meet some interesting, innovative instructors. Many of these have come from a military background, whether it be special forces, anti-terrorist squad, military police or bodyguard world. They came from different parts of the world: Israel, Russia, Canada, Australia, South Africa, Europe and Great Britain. Quite a few of these instructors are well known. They've travelled the seminar front and promoted their military hand-to-hand combat system through courses and workshops. Others are not so well known, and if you're fortunate enough to find these guys and they'll train you on for one-on-one basis, then there's lots of valuable information that they will share with you. So I was fortunate enough for these guys to share those secrets with me, and today I'm going to share those secrets with you. Okay, I mentioned that these guys came from different backgrounds and different countries. The one thing they all had in common, that they were teaching and training in simple, realistic and down-to-earth hand-to-hand combat techniques. Also, they wanted techniques that they could learn in the shortest space of time. The reason for this was they were from a military background, and they were either active in the field or teaching operatives to go into the field, which meant there was a high percentage chance that they would actually have to use these techniques. So they may have had to use them the following week, the following month, or the following year. This is a different outlook to today's recreational martial artist who spends years honing their skills, but probably never going to use them in a reality situation. So I liken this really to the difference between a paramedic and a first aider. When a paramedic goes into train, they're training with a different view, because within months they'll be out in the field and probably applying CPR. For the first aider, they take a week's first aid course, but the likelihood of them ever applying CPR is probably nil. So they treat things in a different manner, and it's exactly the same as the military operative against the modern day recreational martial artist. For the military operative, what they wanted to do was to learn quickly skills that they would probably have to use in a real life situation if they were in the field. So the techniques that they learned had to be learned in the shortest space of time. Also, they had to have a great degree of confidence in those skills. So anything too intricate, sophisticated, just wasn't going to work under a pressure situation. So when adrenaline is introduced into a situation, it makes a big difference, and we tend to revert back to simple skills that we can use rather than looking for long drawn out techniques. If we go right back to say World War I, World War II, hand-to-hand combat was quite likely because most of the fighting was done on the ground or behind enemy lines. In this day and age, most warfare is conducted long range, but again, the military are smart enough to know that if the troops have got to go in on the ground, or for a mopping up operation or peacekeeping, this is a time where they may be exposed to hand-to-hand combat dangers. So they were all taught that once they haven't got a firearm, if they couldn't use their knife, a baton, their helmet, their webbing belt, an entrenching tool, or a rock, then they had to use the most vicious and brutal unarmed combat techniques to get the job done. So their idea was to go in and get the job done quickly. So they had to be first, they had to be fast, they had to be furious, and most of all, they had to be final. And this is the type of training that can be taught to anyone. So the military systems can be adapted to civilian use, and those of you that are looking for a simplistic approach to self-defense will be able to use these techniques effectively with little training. This system is going to be centered around what I term as man stoppers. These are the techniques, the high percentage chance of stopping somebody in their tracks when they're about to attack or hurt you. Forget everything else. These moves are going to give you a guarantee that they will work for you in the most extreme of circumstances. Everything else built around this will be a support system. So we will look at disabling and manipulating techniques, rapid fire takedowns and finishes on the floor, defensive tactics against common grabs and holds that you see in the street, counter-weapon techniques against knives, blades, guns, garrotes and other such weapons, and also equalizers, makeshift weaponry, things that you may carry on your person that you can use in an emergency to fight back with. But the underlying thing all the way through this is, it's the man stoppers that are the core of the system. We will chain the moves together, rapidly making them work one after the other, rather than relying on a one-strike finish. Also, we would deal with fear control and mindset. These two things are essential to understand when you're in a high-pressured situation and adrenaline is flowing through the body. The more we understand about this, the more we're going to be able to deal with it and still function using gross motor skills, nothing complicated. We're going to keep it simple. This system will cover all eventualities that you're going to find in the street. Nothing will be left uncovered. When you've mastered this system, you will have everything in place to have a simple and effective system of self-defense. Alright, we're going to get ready to go. This first section we've called man stoppers. The reason for this, I've been asked over the years that I've trained, what are the most effective techniques to stop somebody in their tracks? Now, this can be a controversial subject and different martial artists will have different views on it. What I'm going to give you today is my opinion based on the experiences that I've had. Training with guys that have real life experience, and myself from my background and what I've experienced myself, I'm going to try and tell you the way I see it. So, when we talk about man stoppers, what we're going to talk about is against an opponent who is already going to fight you, which means they're in fighting mode. They're not standing there, they are already deciding to take that punch at you or to make that grab. Now the problem with this is, they've got adrenaline fueling through their body, and it's going to powerhouse them and make them really strong. They've got cortisol coming from the brain, it's going to stimulate them, make them very aware, and they'll have endorphins in the bloodstream that's going to mask any pain. So, in those first seconds, whatever you decide to use is going to have to be effective, and it's going to have to be fast. My thought on this is you're going to hit somebody with a barrage of strikes, not just one blow, but 2, 3, 4, 5. In these particular vital points I'm going to talk about to get the job done. Now this is different to somebody standing in front of you that's already not in fighting mode, and I'll explain a little bit more about this in a second. So today with me I've got my two sons, Jake and Tom. They're going to be working with me throughout the training and helping me demonstrate these techniques. Okay, thanks guys. Jake, do you want to... I just want to enlarge on something I've just spoke about. If I've got somebody stood in front of me here and they're not in fighting mode, they're relaxed, then wherever I hit them, it's going to hurt them, simply because their body's not ready for it. So when somebody is actually fueled up to fight, there's a big difference. Because if you see people in a boxing ring or in a cage, they get hit umpteen times and it doesn't stop them. I've been in there myself, I've been kicked, punched, kneed, elbowed, and I still carry on fighting. But if I come down in the middle of the night looking for a glass of water in the kitchen, I walk through the living room and crack my shin off the edge of the coffee table and think, shit, that hurt. The reason why is because I'm not prepared to fight. So when you're not prepared to fight, anything hurts. So if I stood here and said to Tom, well, if I'm going to hit you on the arm here, this will hurt you. Certainly if I try and do that, it will hurt. Simply because I've already put a power suggestion in his brain it's going to hurt, and he's not prepared to fight. Now if he's gone into fighting mode and he wants to have a fight with me here, hitting him on the arm ain't going to do anything at all. He's going to walk straight through me. So trying to hit pressure points in small target areas against a live moving opponent is like trying to thread a needle on the deck of a boat in a force 9 gale. It ain't going to happen. So what we're going to look at is striking areas on the body. If you hit them, they will have a profound effect. And we're going to use what I call the ABC system. And this is airway, blood and consciousness. This is the only 3 ways you're guaranteed of stopping somebody. Either taking away their consciousness by shaking their brain, taking away their consciousness by interfering with the air, oxygen, or interfering with the blood flow to the brain. So the big target areas are always going to be here on the head. Anywhere else on the body is not a guaranteed man stopper. Some of the guys that I train with from military backgrounds have been in combat situations where they have kicked people fully in the groin, they broke their arms, they broke their legs, and they still carried on walking towards them. Some of them have even been shot and stabbed and will still function. So reality tells us when somebody is ready to fight, then we must make sure we're going to strike the most effective targets. So let's have a look at the first one. And this is the consciousness. Taking away that consciousness by shaking the brain. Now, depending where we hit on the head, it will have a different effect to the brain itself. But anything where you're hitting around the jaw or the chin will shake the brain, and it will affect different parts. So it will affect breathing, it will affect blood pressure, it will affect heart rate, it will affect muscular movement and conscious fall. And depending on where you strike, we'll see the difference. So the first target areas that we're going to look at are the chin end. Now we all know from boxing that the ultimate finish is that one shot bang on the chin and knock them down. The problem with this is you see in boxing sometimes you can go 12 rounds and not land one of those shots. So we need to be able to throw them in clusters of moves rather than just one thing. What we're going to use is the heel of the hand. This is one of the most strongest natural parts of the body. Much more effective than the closed fist. This can be taught to anyone. Doesn't matter who they are, children, women, men, older people, doesn't make no difference. It will do the job. So we're going to look at different ways of striking the chin, striking the jaw, and then we'll look at some other target areas as well. We're going to look at striking the jaw hinge. Now this can be done in a couple of different ways, but what we're looking to do is hit the angle of the jaw coming down. This is the spot where we're aiming. I'm going to use the heel of my hand again, but it's going to come in a side motion, so it will sweep across. So from this position, I'm going to strike across the line and into the jaw hinge. So you punch the arm through and hit the jaw hinge. So rather than it swinging in a wide arc, it's going to come upwards on a slight angle and striking underneath that jaw hinge. Again, you can get the knockout from there. So once more, if I'm in fighting mode and I get inside here and sweep him away, that strike will drive through, and I'll keep driving through until he's down and out. Another way we can work this is from a side angle. This is called an inverted palm heel, and it hits across this way. So we're inside, and it's almost thrown like a boxer's hook. But I'm going to use the heel of my hand to hit across and snap the jaw across. So again, the angle is inside here. Maybe we've got into this position where we're close fighting, and then I swipe the hand across, hitting the side of the jaw and gaining a knockout. So once more, we've got that side palm heel which drives up this way. And we've got the inverted palm heel which comes across this way. All aiming to hit the jaw for the knockout. If I come in a little bit closer, then this is where the elbows are going to do the same job. So I've gone past what I would call hand range. This is like exchanging of punching range. Elbows are thrown really close. And it's the common mistake in a lot of systems that they throw elbows back here. If I'm going to throw an elbow from here and this guy's actually in fighting mode, he'll block that and stop it from happening. And then he's going to come bang over and hit me. So the elbows are a close range target and much better suited for grappling. So if I close in and grab hold of him as his head pops up here, that's when the elbow comes into play. So I've pulled his head down and naturally he'll want to come up. As he pulls his head up, that strike comes through and hits the jaw for the knockout. Because I'm holding the back of his head, we've got these two directions of force, and this will come in and finish the shot. Now from here, if I miss this, if the chin pulls back and I miss it, you're going to come back with the reverse elbow, using the point of it, and again hitting the jaw. So it could be used as a combination of 1, 2, Or if his head's pulled away, it will drive back through and hit him. But the important thing is right in here. It's close range when we drive the elbows through. Here, here. Now sometimes we talk about a rising elbow. A rising elbow is very hard to actually apply in a live situation. So you see this classical demonstration of a rising elbow, but really it's hard to work and it's not the ideal target. So the best are swinging in or reverse to the target area. We'll look at some other elbow strikes against different target areas in a moment, but in a moment we're concentrating on the jawline and the chin. Obviously again from close in, his head comes up, your own head driving through into the jaw for a close range headbutt will also gain the knockout. What I'm doing is pulling his head forward as my head goes in. Now when you throw the headbutt, this again is close range, you don't pull your head back to throw it. You're going to bring your shoulders up, stabilise the head and drive it straight through. This adds power and body weight to the strike. So you'd never pull the head back because that gives him a chance to come over and hit. So in close, I would drive it through. Then you're in a good position to follow up again with the elbow if you needed to. Step back and hit him with the palm heel to finish it off. So we're using that bars of strikes to those target areas effectively all the time. So palm heels, elbows, headbutt, really good close range weapons to use. Simple to use, simple to practice. Also another weapon we're going to use is the hammer fist, this meaty part of the fist. Again in close range, this struck onto the jaw hinge there will break the jaw. And it's just like a hammer smashing a piece of glass, it's going to drive through and smash that target area. So we look at it again, I've gone into this close quarter of grappling position, I've got control, and I drive that down, right on the jaw hinge. I'm thinking of cutting right the way through the target. So in my mind's eye, I drove that jawbone right the way across when I hit. It can be done in a reverse fashion as well this way. This will whip across. So once more I'm thinking of cutting right the way through. So if I was going to hit through the target, the fist would carry on, smashing its way through. Also another little strike which is quite unusual is coming down onto the jaw hinge this way, which hits the chin down. You see how it pulls the jaw down? It's a really unusual strike and it can get a knockout really quickly. So from inside, we're bang dropping that down. So against a taller person or somebody that leaves their chin exposed, smash comes down and it will take that bottom jaw with it. Okay? So those are the most effective hand strikes or use of the head to take away the consciousness. If you are going to try and stop somebody, these strikes that we practice in here are the ones we need to use and be able to do. Obviously if the person is over or he's down, then driving your knee up into the jaw or the chin will give you a knockout as well. So in this instance we may be in a clinch or he may have tried to grab me right away, so I've moved him away far enough to smash the knee up or this way underneath the chin. Bang, and that will give you your knockout. So the attack is to your lower gauge, you're going to move away, pull him back and smash, drive the knees up into the chin from this position and that will drop it. Obviously if the person's down, so they're on their knees, then again the shot will come in straight through. If I can grab hold of the head even better and drive in here or drive down with your downward strikes. Stay down with me. Also using your shin bone drove up and into the chin will gain a knockout. So if that person is scrabbling up from all fours, you've disengaged, and that shot will hit them and knock them out. So we're looking at all possible weapons that can hit these target areas, from standing right the way down to floor. So again, in this all-four struggle where you may have disengaged and the man's coming up, that strike will knock him back. Alright, at this point we're just going to recap on those strikes now. Now remember, at the moment we're just dealing with that one target area of the chin and the jaw before we move on to look at a couple of other areas. So we'll go down through them again just so you've got them clear in your mind. So we started off by moving in close and coming up underneath the chin with that rising palm heel strike. And remember, anchor the head and drive it in 2 or 3 times if need be. We move to attacking the jaw hinge with this side palm heel. Remember, punching it up and into the jaw hinge from this angle. Then we looked at the inverted palm heel, which snapped across the jaw from a side angle. Getting in a little bit closer, we brought the elbows into play. Circular elbow across into the jaw and the reverse elbow if we missed it, or we could use it as a combination of strikes. The headbutt driven in, pulling the head as we drive forward and hit the chin end. Alright, moving on, we're looking at a different weapon. This time we're going to look at the hammer fist. The hammer fist is the fleshy base of the fist. We're going to use this in a smashing action towards the jaw or the chin end. And we'll have a look at a few examples. First of all, we're going to come across on an angle and strike in, just where the jaw hinge is, meeting with the chin. We're going to strike across and through the target. So rather than thinking of hitting on it, we're going to go right the way through it so it cuts completely through the side of the jaw. We can also do this in a reverse fashion, coming across and driving through the same target area, making the hand feel as heavy as possible and smashing across so it knocks the jawline straight across. Okay. Also, an orthodox strike is coming down to the point of the chin. The hammer fist follows downwards here, hitting down on the chin, pulling the lower jaw down as it goes. So even against an opponent that is standing and wanting to fight you, you can chop through these targets and smash your way down into them and take away the consciousness. And moving on from here, if this man is coming down lower towards me, maybe he's trying to grab me around the body or the legs, then I'm going to use the knee strikes now. So as he comes in towards me and I pull him down, I'm going to drive the knee up underneath the chin. Powerful strike, smashing up and taking away the consciousness again. Also, if he's dropped on all fours, we can hit from the side to the jawline, coming through, knocking him across. So if he's deciding to get up from that all fours position, we come from the side angle and smash the knee across, opening him out. Let's come up. We do the 2. Pull it down, and across. Also from this transitional position, if he's coming upwards, we can use the shin, smashing into the jaw from this angle. So now he's down too low to effectively follow up with any other strikes, so it's going to be the shin kick coming in and across into the chin or the jaw. So once again, if we come to standing, from this series of moves, maybe I've struck him with the knees, pulled him down, he goes to get up, and the shin kick hits him in the jaw and takes away the consciousness. These blows are man stoppers, techniques that will take that opponent down and out if you succeed in hitting them. Okay, remember I spoke about ABC. This is C, this is the consciousness part. So we've looked at attacking the chin and the jaw to achieve that unconscious state. Now we're going to look at another target area on the head that will do the same job. This is the temples, which is roughly about 1 inch back from the eye line. This is a soft spot on the skull. So if it's hit in a certain way, you'll find that it particularly affects muscular use of the limbs. If I just recall a boxing match a long time ago with Mike Tyson, where he hit his opponent Trevor Burbeck, and when he got up off the floor, his arms and legs were all over the place and he couldn't stand up. And that was because he was hit on the temple. So it does affect the body in a different way. So this time you'll find that the muscular use of the limbs can be affected, as well as achieving the knockout. Now again, this was used in the military, particularly not only unarmed, but with the butt of a rifle or a gun. This was a target area to take a sentry out and put them down at the quickest time possible. So the bare hand would be just as effective. We're going to use the knuckles to strike here. Now it's not very often that in military systems they will use fists to strike the head, simply because they can't risk damaging their hands. If they were going to fire a gun or to maybe do something intricate with their hands, then they would use open hand strikes preferable. But this one we're going to use the knuckles. I'm going to grab the back of the head again for support. The fist is going to corkscrew around the top and into the temple. So again, this is a different type of punch. It's not going to come up like a hook because we can't hit that flat area. The fist will not strike it. But when we grab it and corkscrew the knuckle over, now it hits that target area. So once again, we're looking to strike 4 or 5 times into that target area if need be to get the knockdown. If you can hold the head for support, even better. It can be done, but again the man's head will move away, which will lessen the effect and he might want to come back. Remember, we're talking about somebody who's in a fighting frame of mind. So when we get in close, then we will turn it and corkscrew it in 3 or 4 times, and that may then be backed up with what we were doing before if we needed to do so. Okay? Another way of attacking the temples is with both your hands at the same time. And again, I'm going to use my knuckles, but I'm going to use the 4 knuckles. These are the knuckles you would rap on a door with. So from here, they're going to drive through. So if this guy has grabbed me, here, this strike will come through and hit both temples at the same time, which will give you that concussive effect and knock them down. Alright, again we can attack the temples with the elbows. This will depend on the height of your opponent in relation to you, but later on we'll look at some ways you can bring somebody down to your own size to execute it. But at the moment with myself and Tom here, we're at the right size to be able to strike that back elbow into the temple. And also your horizontal elbow coming across will also do the job. But the back elbow most effective, coming in from inside and whipping across, or even if the person was stood on the side of me here and I get a shot coming through here to knock them down. So the tip of the elbow into the temple will stop somebody immediately in their tracks and take them down to the floor. The hammer fist will also do the same job, striking in and just battering your way through that target. And basically it's just like putting a nail into a piece of wood. You're just going to keep hammering until the person's down. So one strike is not going to do it. If that person's ready to go, he'll take it and come on. So I want to drive in and fire through with as much viciousness and intent behind this to put the person down and to the floor. So the elbows, reverse and horizontal, and the hammer fist will all attack the temple and give you the result of taking away the consciousness. Alright, a couple of more strikes to this target area. I'm turning from the side, where again I may have come into a close quarter grapple and got hold of the man's head, and I'm going to drive my headbutt straight through that target area. Now again, this is such a vulnerable point, even me pushing my head into this target area will make the person want to release. But in a serious situation, obviously that's not going to work for you. You're going to have to go straight through. So if I grab hold of the head, then you drive it straight through and keep driving through for the finish. And obviously again you can back it up with the hammer fist. Finally on this section, the person's down, again on the knees or in grappling form, is to hit from the side into that temple. So normally if you're coming from a side angle, the temple is exposed, so you come through and knock them away.
And your foot is there as well if you want to fire it through to the same target area. So once he's down, drive through, smashing the head away. If he's still there, then the heel of your foot can come through and strike up. So remember, in military, we're going to wear boots, heavy footwear. We're not going to be in bare feet. So any strike using the foot with a boot or shoe on will have an effect on the target areas that we're talking about. Alright, this is the third target area on the head that's going to affect the consciousness. Now we're looking at the base of the skull. So, the base of the skull here, you'll feel a dip and indentation. And this is where the skull sits on top of the neck vertebrae. Right at this point is an area called the cerebellum. And that basically controls breathing, heart rate, blood pressure, also muscular movements. So when this area is struck, again we can affect the knockout. But once more, it must be struck in a series of blows. It's highly unlikely you're going to knock somebody down with just one strike. So we need to follow this up. So we're going to look at some ways of attacking this area. So the first one, if I off-center the man so I get this off angle, I'm going to use my forearm and drive it through the base of the skull. This is like being hit with a baseball bat. It's going to catch the man unawares, hit him from behind and jolt the brain forward. So an off angle, this is the angle to deliver the strike, and then you punch your arm through. So if I just do this without Tom stood there, rather than swinging the arm completely, you're going to punch it forward so the meaty part of the forearm connects with the base of the skull. If I just do this slowly from Tom's upright position, you can see how it jerks the head forward. Now that's just done from close range. But if you really power this through, you're going to get your knockout. So remember, we've got this off angle, and then bang, drive it through. The person is bent over here, and they still haven't gone down, then your forearm will come downwards. Same, using the large muscular part of the forearm, driving down onto the base of the skull. So they can be used individually or as a follow-up. Remember, I said you may have to follow these up. In this position now, he's a little bit too far down for the forearm, so the hammer fist comes into play. So what we're trying to do is to chain these strikes together, so as the distance varies, you will come up with the appropriate strike. Now, if you've only got 4 or 5 strikes to use, then you're more likely to remember them under pressure. So from here, we've struck the base of the skull. We come down again with a forearm. He's on his way down, and this time the hammer fist follows his way through. All right, we looked at the person being bent over here. They've been knocked over by the shot, and we looked at the forearm, and we looked at the hammer fist strike in this area. Again, we're back to the elbow. I mentioned earlier on we're going to use this again. This time the elbow will come downwards onto the base of the skull. Once more, the tip of the elbow fits directly into that target area. So when we throw the elbow coming down, the hand will be open. And what we're going to imagine in our mind's eye is we're going to take a handful of air and pull that downwards, and the elbow's going to be on the end of it. And this is where your power comes from. We don't want to hit with our arm alone, because once more, this may not stop the person. We need to bring it up and pull down. We've got a chain, we're going to pull it and drop it downwards so your full body weight goes down through that target area to make the finish. Now, if the person is directly onto the floor and they've gone face down and they're still in the fight, maybe he's reaching back here for a weapon in his pocket or something, then you're going to use your knee to drop down onto the base of the skull. This is a really powerful, it's a dangerous technique, and it's reserved for a life-threatening situation where that person may be reaching for the weapon. So from this position, when the person is down, to lean over and strike is dangerous. I'm losing my posture, and I'm also using any peripheral vision. So there's more than one person involved here. They can come in and take your back. If I drop with my knee, then I'm in a position to still look around and see what's happening. So if the person's gone all the way to the floor, then you use your knee now rather than your hands. So those are the most effective ways to attack the base of the skull and get a major result. Alright, we're looking at recapping down on the target areas for consciousness. Now we've looked at quite a few of them. It's just let's run over them again, keep them fresh in the mind. Starting off, we aim to hit that chin and jaw area. We opened up with the palm heel strikes, coming in close and driving upwards. 100% commitment. Remember, coming up underneath the jawline, anchoring the head if you can to give this more power and effect. We also come across with the side palm heel to the jaw, smashing it straight away through the jaw hinge, and the inverted palm heel coming across in the opposite direction, thrown like a hook. From here again, we moved in to using the elbows, same target areas. We closed the gap. Once more, if we can stabilize the head, we drove this horizontal elbow across into the jawline. We also looked at if we missed or we pulled his head away, the reverse elbow comes back into the same target once again. Or we can use them in combination of 1 and 2 coming through. Also the headbutt drove through, straight into the jaw. Remember, keeping the head tight, the shoulders hunched, not pulling the head back, but driving it directly into the target and taking their consciousness away from that position. Moving in, we have the knees smashing into the face, coming up underneath the chin. If we drop to the floor, we hit the jaw coming across ways. Also, as the man was getting up from that all fours transitional position, we had the shin kick into the jaw to take away the consciousness. The temple area was a second area that we used to attack. We opened up and we had the hammer fist striking into the temples. We also had the corkscrew punch that drove into the temple area as well. If we could support the head as we've done this, it's become reinforced. Both of these target areas can be driven through. We looked at the double knuckles, 4 knuckles driving into the temples, both together, simultaneously hitting either side to create that effect. It's like a concussive effect there. So again, we're in and we drove through and smashed those target areas. Once again, we drop to the floor, we can smash the temple with the knees. Exactly the same movements as we had to attack the jawline. And this will drive through and once again attack the consciousness. Well, remember, we also attacked that base of the skull here, that cerebellum area, which controlled breathing, it controlled heart rate, blood pressure, and also muscular and conscious thought as well. We struck with the forearms, heavy forearm coming through onto the base of the skull. Remember, we punched the arm through, hitting with the large muscle of the forearm, rather than just swinging the arm totally. Driving in, which will hit the base of the skull, taking away that consciousness. Also, we drove the forearm down onto the base of the skull. The hammer fist will do the same job as well. So if we fell short with the hammer fist and we felt we needed to follow down again, we brought the forearm into play, and they can interchange whichever one we want to use. Also, we had the elbow. Remember, grabbing that handful of air, pulling the arm down and through the target area onto the base of the skull there. As much power as you can deliver, bending the knees so your whole body weight is behind the strike, rather than it just being the arm strike alone. That brings them down. Remember, if they come to the floor in this position, we can finish this down with our knee strikes. If he's lying face down, the knee drop back onto the base of the skull is a big finisher. You can do this either side from both angles. Dropping down and onto the base of the skull to finish. Those are the 3 major target areas that will affect and take away the consciousness. Alright, so remember, chain the moves together. Don't think of them as just one blow finishes. they've got to be continually used as a barrage of strikes. So whether we're hitting the chin end, the temples, the base of the skull, they will be done in a total chaining movement, total commitment, working on those gross motor skills. Remember, for the military, they had limited time to learn these things. As part of their overall training, they might have 6 weeks to learn unarmed combat skills. So the techniques had to be picked up quickly, and they had to be learned quickly as well. So the less sophisticated they were, the less complicated, the more chance they had of remembering them under stress and pressure in the field. So this wasn't a 3-minute rounds of boxing they were indulging in, or rolling around on the floor grappling for half an hour. Their job was to get in there and to finish it. So they had to be first in, they had to be fast, they had to be ferocious, and most of all they had to be final with what they'd done. It was in and over immediately. And this is the mindset we need to take for these. So if we're adapting them for civilian self-defense, it will be no different. Your job will to be get in, chain the blows, get them over quickly, and be safe and get away. Alright, we're moving on to the A in the ABC. This is attacking the airway. So we're looking at attacking the windpipe area. Again, this is reserved for situations where, you know, it's a life-threatening scenario developing. And in this case, attacking the airway will have a profound effect on the person straight away. So again, it's a big percentage target area to hit, and one of the major man-stopping targets that we're going to use. We're going to look at a few different ways of doing this. So I've got Jake working with me now. He's slightly taller, so this is where we need to modify and change things depending on the opponent that you're facing. So we're going to look at some strikes first of all. The first strike that we're going to use is called a web hand strike. This is using this part of your hand here. The strike can be done in 2 ways. It can be done as a jabbing movement, and it can be done as a thrusting movement. So we're going to look at the 2 ways. So the first one from here is to drive your hand in and return it again. Okay, I'm just going to do a few at speed, and then I'll drop this down and slow it down. So again, I'm delivering this with intention behind it, looking to finish the job. It will come in, strike with the web of the hand, and retract again. So I'm looking to maybe follow it in 2 or 3 times if I needed to do this. So from here, drive through, hit the windpipe, retract again. So I may have to drive in 3 or 4 times to finish the job. The thrusting movement is different. This is with a straight arm. So I thrust right the way through, which propels the person backwards. So a little bit more body weight behind this, and we're going to drive and thrust the man away. So if I wanted to open up space between us, or if this is more than one opponent, I'm giving myself space and room to move away. So with the first strike, it's more engaging. I'm going to hit and possibly follow it in with things that we've done before. The second strike is to disengage, is to open up a space to move, or if I needed to follow through with something else, I would come through and take down the lower gauge rather than the top. So that's the arc hand strike. We're going to use a 4-knuckle strike now. Again, these are the knuckles that you would rap on a door with. These are close range weapons. They come up the centre line, very much like the palm heel did, and punch into the throat here. You see that my forearm is really close to Jake's body, and it drives upwards and into the target. So within close quarter grappling, the man pushes his head and chin upwards, this strike will punch up into the throat. So it's much more effective than, say, trying to use the fist to hit the chin. This comes up and drives through into the windpipe, which sets you up for those chaining strikes going back to attacking the jaw as well. So we're in close and up the centre line and drive in. Again, it's an unorthodox strike, but works really, really well. It's effective in close quarter situations where you're not going to have a lot of room and space. Most fights, when they go to an upright sort of grappling or clinching position, it's very difficult to hit somebody. As soon as you pull back to throw any big strike, this person will just close you down. So being able to strike from in close is where we want to be. We'll chain these things together and get rid of the person. So, arc hand, thrusting through, snapping back, 4-knuckle strike. Can be done from close range, coming up underneath the eye line. Alright, we're still looking at attacking the airway. This time we're going to use the edge of our hand. Sometimes this is referred to as a knife hand strike, an axe hand strike. We're going to use the edge of the hand to attack the windpipe in a few different ways. First of all, if we're going to use this, it needs to come up and underneath the line of the chin and drive forward into its target. So if from the front we're using this as a fighting technique and the man is fighting me, then I cover this up as a shield. So I can parry punches and get through into that target off this shield position. And this is how you can produce it and bring it into play from the front. Also effectively it works from the side or off angle. If I grab from the side, I immediately twist, turn and drive the knife hand edge into the windpipe for my finish. So any time that you approach or attack from the side, we can bring this straight up and into the windpipe to affect the air and take away the consciousness from there. So from the front, from that shield position, we can drive through and attack the windpipe. From the side, we can swing round and attack the windpipe from there. Okay? So these two areas will immediately be affected as we grab. Now, just to recap on what we've done here. Remember, we used the web hand to attack the throat. We stepped in and struck either in a jabbing fashion or that full thrust through, sending the man back from there. We also used the 4-knuckle strike, a little bit closer. Those rapping knuckles that you would hit a door with come up and punch through the throat underneath, keeping that arm tight to the shirt front as we come up and under to find the target area, driving through. The knife hand, once more, off the side or from the shield position. Also, closing the windpipe down, the claw hand, squeeze in to take away the air. Those are the major ways of attacking the airway and taking them to unconsciousness. Alright, still looking at attacking the airway. I'm going to move on to some grabbing techniques. This first one, from close quarter, we're going to use a hand claw grip to the windpipe. We're going to close off the windpipe using the fingers and the thumb. We're going to try and get in as deep as we can and squeeze. So what we're trying to do is to let the hand meet in the middle. And from here, we squeeze it shut. Once again, I'm going to try and get control of the head. The natural reaction is two things will happen from here. Either the man will pull his head back to get away from it, or he'll pull your hand away. Okay? So when I get in here, if he's pulling my hand away, I want to keep it. If I need to follow in, this is where the headbutt coming into the temple will follow in, and you can go back to using the choke. Also, it can be done from behind, which is a safer option because now I haven't got to deal with anything the man can throw at me from the front. Now normally this would be used once again to take somebody down and out. So this hand would come over and clamp the nose and mouth so no air was going in, and then they would squeeze the windpipe and take it down to the floor. And once again you can finish with the strikes that we've looked at earlier on. Right, we're just going to look at this from another angle. I'll move Jake over to here. So remember, we have got behind the person. Whether we grabbed around and got beyond him, this hand comes up and seizes the windpipe. The other one will come around now and close the mouth and the nose, clamping it down, taking away his air, squeeze the windpipe and drive him to the floor for the finish. Time. Through, grab, clamp the nose and mouth tightly, take away the air, squeeze and bring him to the floor, continuing the pressure. All right, I'm going to use a chokehold now. Now, a chokehold affects the airway. That's the most important thing to remember. Sometimes people use the word choke and strangle and mix them in as the same technique. A choke will always attack the airway. A strangle will slow the blood flow. So in this case, it's airway that we're affecting. I'm just going to put Jake down onto his knees here so you can see this a little bit more clearly. I'm going to come around the front of the throat and use the first 2 to 3 inches of the inside bone of my forearm and wrist. This sits into the windpipe and my hands would join tightly now in a palm-to-palm grip to form this frame. It's a square frame where my shoulder is driven into the back of Jake's neck and the forearm into the windpipe. So if I just move out of here, this is the frame that you're forming. Tight and it's unbreakable. From this position, I'm going to do this nice and steadily. I keep my head buried so he can't attack me and squeeze directly back. Here. Now this comes on the windpipe really quickly. So from here, head tightly down for defense and squeeze it through. And if we bring him up to standing, we can look at how this is really applied effectively. Now from here, once I've joined the choke up, you're going to pull the man back off balance. So it's like a hangman's choke, like hanging from the end of a noose. The weight will be on his neck and windpipe. Now this technique I first learned from training with members of the Israeli Special Forces. It was a method they used constantly to take people off their feet and take away that consciousness. So whether they'd done it straight from behind or set it up from the front with a barrage of strikes, it was always finish it. Now, it's very difficult to train in practice effectively. But what we're going to do slowly here is to directly drag back so that Jake's weight is hanging off the windpipe. And you can see what a powerful move this is. And if I just do this without Jake, the movement will be to scoop your forearm and pull your legs away so that the man hangs. So I'm just going to let this off a little bit here. When I do this, I'm going to let Jake fall free, but the movement is through so that the man is literally hanging off your arms, and that reinforces the power of this choke. Alright, another method of choking is called a guillotine choke, and this is done with the man's head down. So once again, this is used if somebody is rushing in towards you and we step away from them. So we're going to protect the legs and form that square frame again. Only this time it's done from a different angle. So now the frame is set up in reverse fashion. It's coming up underneath the windpipe area. I'll join this in. Now the danger is I don't want my legs grabbed or certainly my groin being grabbed, so I'm going to step back underneath and lift from this position so I get a full arch on the back, which puts the pressure on the windpipe coming up from underneath. So once again, a common mistake of this technique is to stand here and try and lift and squeeze. And the problem is when I get to my tiptoes, I've got nowhere else to go. And if it hasn't come on, then the man's just going to lift my legs up and probably take me down to the floor. So when I apply this, I'm going to drive underneath him and lift. So I'm moving him back with this technique continually. He's never going to be in a position where he can stand still. He's going to keep driving him back until you get the unconsciousness from that guillotine choke. Once more. So he comes in, snap his head down, come underneath him, lift and crank this on for the finish. Once again, it sets you up in a good position if you needed to break away and strike and disengage. Alright, we're going to look at one final strike to this airway. And this is using the tip of the fingers. Again, the best way to use this is from close in. To be able to throw strikes with your fingers from this distance is just too dangerous. You're going to risk breaking those fingers. Inside in grappling range, I'm going to bring the fingers up and drive in. Now I'm going for the indentation right at the bottom of the windpipe here, which is called the jugular notch. When we drive in with the fingertips here, it sets off a gag reflex where the person begins to cough and splutter when they feel they're choking. So as I come in, the fingers will drive in, but they will go down in behind the collarbone and into the target area. So once again, it's really impossible to throw these strikes from back here. You're not going to get them in. They need to be done from grappling, where I can drive the target area and straight into it and take him down to the floor. Even if the person was jammed against the wall when we pushed him back, this is a lethal strike and can drop somebody instantly by driving the fingers down and through the jugular notch. So this is your indentation at the base of the windpipe, and the strike goes in and down. And we'll look again later at how we can use this to break out of some holes as well. Alright, we're going to do a recap here on airway. Remember, we're dealing with ABC, and these were attached to the airway. So, we started with hand strikes. We looked at the arc hand strike, it whipped in and came back again. Or that thrusting arc hand strike, driving the opponent backwards. We used the four-knuckle strike, coming up underneath the jawline and punching into the windpipe. The reverse knife hand, attacking from the front or from this off angle if you were grabbed from the side. Then we moved in closer, looking at the claw hand grip to the windpipe. From the front angle, also if we move the attacker around, clamp the nose and face, taking away the air and squeeze in shut. We also moved to this rear naked choke, where we're going to squeeze the windpipe, keep the head down, and remember then we turn it into this hangman's choke, where we took him right off his feet and hung him in that position. Right, we've also seen the guillotine choke. This was done from the front, somebody coming in to attack us low, we step back, got the blade edge of the forearm underneath the throat, step in and under, driving the man backwards, breaking his balance as we applied that choke for the finish. And finally, we had the spear finger thrust into that jugular notch, the indentation at the base of the windpipe. We went in and down in behind the collarbones to effect this particular choke. It can be done from grappling, where we're holding on and I've got something to hold the weight when I drive the fingertip through. Or again, like I said, the person could be back against a wall and you can drive in to finish from that position. Now we're moving on to blood, which is the B in that ABC equation. We're going to attack the carotid arteries that run up either side of the windpipe. So basically, either side of the windpipe, if you put your fingers into this area, you can feel that pulse beating. And this is carrying blood to the brain. What we're going to do is to strike it or disrupt this blood flow, which again will put the person down to unconsciousness. We're going to look at a few methods of achieving this. The first way, we're going to use once more the edge of the hands, the knife hand strikes. Again, they're effective if you can grab hold of the person, secure them so that they can't move back or escape. I'm going to come down underneath the angle of the jawline and hit the carotid artery. Okay? Just by pushing your fingers into that target area, you can feel where it is. Now, for most people, when they apply this attack, they hit the neck muscle, which is painful, but it will not give you the knockout. So this short, sharp strike just underneath the angle of the jawline will guarantee that you're going to get at least a profound effect on that person where they're going to start struggling for air. So back in, and if we need to follow it again, we'll drive in or come back to one of the other target areas. It's difficult to do this in a free-form situation where people are throwing punches and kicks, etc. It's very difficult to target it. It's much better to do this from close in, where you get the angle to drive the strike in. It doesn't have to come from a great distance. It's all about the power of your hips driving the strike through. So that's one way of achieving this. The other way is reverse knife hand. So this will whip across the neck this way. Again, from a side angle, you can whip this down just underneath the jawline and it will find the carotid artery. or from the front, it can be part and parcel of a combination if we needed to follow it up. So the strike comes down and across the body. Down and across, that's your angle. So from here, off the lead hand, and the rear hand if you wanted to put them both together and chain them into this double strike. 1 and 2 follow through. But most effective from when you've got hold of the hair. Get the angle and then drive the knife hand down into the carotid artery. Alright, we're looking at using the forearm now to attack, again, that blood supply hitting the carotid arteries. 2 ways we're going to use this. First of all, this is an inside forearm strike. I'm going to move across to create the angle and then again punch my forearm into the carotid artery on the side of the neck. This shocks the carotid nerve and bang, drops that blood flow to the brain really, really quickly. So get the angle right. Remember, we're coming underneath the jaw line, so I've stepped across and struck from close range with the forearm. Now also I can do this in a reverse fashion. The forearm now will rise upwards and jam into the carotid artery, pushing the man back. It's a different feeling. It comes up and smashes through the carotid artery to take away that blood flow to the brain, which will give you that unconsciousness. Now, the beauty of using the forearms is that there's no damage to the hands or the fist. You can use these from close range, and they're like baseball bats when you throw them. Now, this was especially important for military because it protected their hands. If they needed to use them again to pick up a firearm or to perform some intricate skill, they needed to make sure that their hands were safe. So the forearms were emphasized and used a lot by Russian special forces, a particular technique they like to use at close range, and they would combine these with their chokes and strangles to take that person down. So one more time, looking at the angle, coming across and into the neck. Reverse fashion, and into the neck. Alright, now we're going to look at the strangle. We attacked the airway with a choke a moment ago. Let's look at the strangle and see the difference. If I put you onto these. The strangle attacks the blood flow of the carotid arteries. So this time, when my arm goes around the neck, the windpipe is not being interfered with at all. So my bicep and my forearm squeeze the carotid arteries down. So without linking this other hand up, just by applying that pressure, you can see how quick that will come on. And again, this was used to take down enemies, particularly from behind, where they couldn't shout out. So if they wanted to silently take somebody down and out, this was a great method. Now, all I'm going to do is join this up, so my hand goes onto my bicep, and I'm going to put the blade edge of my hand down into the base of the skull. This locks it in place, and then I just close my elbows. And you can see how quick it's tapping there. So again, head buried in, squeeze, and up. So if I take the man around, I can do this from the front by knocking and turning the guy around and breaking his balance, lock this into place, and squeeze it shut. Sometimes this is referred to as a sleeper hold because that's what it does. It will put somebody to sleep and drop them to the floor, but it doesn't carry the danger of collapsing the windpipe. So sometimes it's a preferred method if you didn't want to really seriously hurt somebody. So again, ground it in, lock it down, protect your head, and squeeze it shut. Just put you one more time underneath. So remember, nothing on the windpipe. Bicep and forearm does the job. This can just be done just off the one, but when this is locked in, it's very difficult for the man to break the hold. And you squeeze it and take them out. Alright, the last method we're going to look at for effectively attacking this area is when the person is on the floor. So again, they may have been taken down to the floor in the middle of a tussle, and they may have been thrown or taken down. drop them to the floor. From here, I'm going to use my knee again. I'm going to drop the knee down into that carotid artery on the side of the neck. Now, I'm not using this as a pin or a control. This time, this is going to be used as a finishing shot. So remember, once that person hits the floor, I don't want to come down and engage again with them, otherwise we may end up on the floor. So as soon as they've hit the floor, my knee is dropping down and into the net as hard as possible to make the finish. Again, pivot and drop your full body weight down into the net to gain that knockout. Just on this angle here. I pivot on the ball of the toe and then drop the kneecap down and into the net. This is your whole body weight behind the strike now, which makes it such a powerful finish and a guaranteed knockout. So from any grappling encounter, when the person is down and onto the floor, the knee drop just fires its way through. Now again, it's just like the forearms would be. They're battering rams, the knees will just drive through. So if I was driving into the ribs, driving into the head, they will go through with great power and no damage to yourself. Also, it will keep you on your feet. Remember, if they're engaging with an enemy, you don't know who else is about. So you don't want to end up rolling around on the floor, but you need to drop this in, finish it, get up, and be ready to escape. Alright, let's just review these final set of strikes that all attacked the blood. We started off using the knife hand strikes, coming in underneath the angle of the jawline. Remember, I mentioned better if you can grab hold and anchor the person's head in place to drive the knife hand strike in underneath the jawline. Also, the reverse knife hand strike will cut its way into that target area as well. From the front or off angle, it will find its way through to the same target area. So these are effective ways of striking with the hands. Then we use the forearms. They cut across the body, shocking that target area, dropping somebody very, very quickly. So it will just catch their breath and their voice. They won't be able to shout, it just freezes them and hits them and knocks them straight to the floor. So it can be done with the inside or the outside. And they're both powerful strikes, just again like battering rams into the net there for the finish. And we looked at using the strangle to close down the blood flow. Different feeling now than the choke. Now we're going to slow the blood down by squeezing on those carotid arteries either side of the neck, and they come on really, really effectively. And then we looked at attacking it from a knee drop. Person on the floor, take it down, and the knee drop down and through the target area. Remember, again, full body weight behind it, and just drive in, finish it, get up, and get out. Still maintaining a degree of balance so that you're not tied up on the floor, which is a great quick way of finishing somebody when they hit the deck. So remember, what we're trying to do on this particular section is look at strikes that've got a high percentage chance of finishing the job. Now, from the people within the military that I learned these strikes from initially, they had all used these strikes in situations and they had worked for them. So this isn't theoretical. This is not martial arts in a dojo or a training hall where we're discussing what would happen if you've done this, that or the other. These guys from real military experience will tell you exactly what will happen if you hit these target areas. So these were the major strikes. If you're looking to stop somebody, these are the ones that will work. There's hundreds of other strikes, but none of them quite as effective as this little small group. Now, if you've got them and you remember them and you can chain them together, then you've got a good chance of stopping anybody in their tracks.